I just want to start and say thank you to the organisers of today, I believe Suzanne and Annie. It's great that we're still able to meet virtually, so it's lovely. So to everyone that doesn't know, my name's Connie York. I identify as a transgender woman and my pronouns are she, her. Today I want to be talking about my journey in my trans identity and how the Met Police and the NHS can help support the trans and gender diverse people. So a little bit about myself. I'm 24. I've lived in Essex all my life and I've been very fortunate that I've been able to be involved in projects to raise awareness for trans and gender non-conforming people, such as events like today. Like many people growing up, I didn't have a lot of access to information about my community. And for many years, I felt extremely lost in myself and who I was. I'd always known from the age of 4 that I was different. However, the language and information that we have today, unfortunately, I continued to struggle until around 16 years old. So I wasn't able to learn more about the wider LGBTQIA+ community until a little bit later on. So it was actually after a failed relationship broke down that I realised that I was meant to live my life for me, and however that made me happy. I was lucky enough that I had supportive friends I could be myself around and explore my identity in their company without prejudice. So after much procrastinating and fear of the future, I made the plunge in December of 2016 to socially transition and tell my friends and family that I am transgender. I had a supportive team and that I worked with and that treated me like a person and not a big scary monster that people just did not understand. I had a particular friend and colleague that used my chosen pronouns and helped others in the business know how I wanted to be addressed without the awkward conversation. So in terms of how I'd found, I'd always found it's important to know someone's pronouns and how to address someone. So it's always best to ask. If you make a mistake, just apologise and correct yourself and move on. If you keep apologising, you could be making more harm than good. It's always important to keep in mind that not all questions are suitable and that some can be uncomfortable for trans people. If you're ever unsure, online research is always your best port of call. So statistically, there are actually only around 200,000 to 500,000 people in the UK that identify as transgender or non-binary. This is only 1% of the UK's population. Sorry, I don't know if that's come off. Where was I? Sorry. However, I was introduced to more people in my tribe and the wider community being featured in Pakistan London Fashion Week in May of 2019, where Pakistan had at the time recently changed legislation to legally recognise trans people and was featured in the fashion show. This was also televised on BBC News and I was incredibly proud to be involved as I wanted the next generation of young people to see that it was okay to be trans and that I think that having visibility for the community is incredibly important if we are to make positive changes for the future. This is where I believe the NHS and Met Police can help support more people within the trans community. Firstly, this is a great way of showing solidarity and awareness by putting your pronouns on your professional and work and your personal emails. It's not only open to conversation about how we view pronouns, but can help people in the community feel more visible and valid. I also believe that more flyers and information leaflets within GP surgeries and hospitals are vital, as one observation I found at my own local GP practice is there were next to no information for gender questioning people or even in the wider LGBT community. This also trickles into procedures within GP practices, as there is a lack of awareness as to what the correct process is when dealing with gender questioning folk. As someone who went through this experience personally, I found it quite difficult at times and would spend most of the appointment explaining the next step required to GPs and what tests were required and why. In England in 2019 to 2020, the Gender Identity and Development Service reported 2,545 referrals, which were made to gender identity clinics, up 90% from 2015 to 2016 of 1,333 referrals. For trans individuals new to the journey, working out what to do next, this can be quite confusing. So I believe that streamlining the journey for supporting the trans community is extremely important. I'll also attach a link at the end of today's topic for the Tavistock and Portman Trust, GIC, that provide more information on supporting transgender service users, and the website can also provide guidance on appointments and processes for patients attending the GIC and GP support for information sessions. Furthermore, something that is universal to NHS staff and Met officers when supporting the community is being mindful of intersections. For example, an individual can identify as trans male, however, can also be gay and disabled. The key thing is to remember not to box people into spaces and treat people as individuals and not stereotypes or assumptions. Also, as you know, it is LGBT History Month, and as such, I want to pay homage and tribute to the trans POC Marsha P. Johnson, and alongside her friend Sylvia Riviera, founding members of the Gay Liberation Front and co-founder of the radical activist group Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. So in summary of today's topics, I wanted us just to remember being aware of the language that we use in day-to-day life and how small changes can have big impacts, how we can help support the trans individuals in the workplace, and the making mistakes with pronouns and name changes is natural, but to be mindful of it going in the future. How online research is always a great resource for supporting the trans community or a friend, and how breaking down stereotypes and assumptions can create space for everyone.